For me, it was a number of years ago when I was a senior at the USC, a psychobiology major, on a track to go to med school, that I began to have a spiritual awakening that at the time I thought was pathological. Seeing a vision, things of that particular nature, culminating in a lucid dream that I was killed in. I was stabbed in my heart, and when I woke up, I could see the beauty and the love that was everywhere. The earth shimmering with beauty and aliveness. The love that penetrated every cell of my being was indescribable, and it shifted the trajectory of my life. And I began to research to discover what had happened to me and what had continued to happen to me for a number of years. Obviously, then bumped into the teachings of Jesus the Christ, Gautama the Buddha, Moses, all of the mystics of the path. And began to be aware, more importantly, of the sacredness, not only the sacredness of the planet, but the sacredness of every single being as an emanation of the Most High God. It was at one point in my life that I was eating a piece of chicken. And as I bit into this chicken, I could feel the agony of the chicken. I could feel the pain. It was real in my bones. And at that moment, I became a vegetarian. I remember telling my mother this, and she became so worried. What are you going to eat, baby? She knew I loved chicken. And I said, don't worry, I'll make it, but I can't eat meat anymore. I felt the pain and the agony of the animal as it was killed. I could feel the intense agony and the anxiousness, the anxiety. It was in my body. So my first movement towards vegetarianism was because of how we treat animals. Later on, as I evolved, I began to understand that you don't eat animal protein. It's unnecessary. That dynamic health and vitality, vigor, flexibility, slowing down of the aging process, eliminating the condition for disease, happens much better when you're not putting animal byproducts in your body temple. So my next level of evolution around vegetarianism and ultimately veganism was around health, the dynamic of health. When I drive by and I see McDonald's and I see Carl's Jr. and I see those KFC, I call that death row. You know, we laugh about it, but I speak about that at my spiritual center. I said, when you drive down death row, keep driving. You know, matter of fact, a friend of mine was in the South, and there was a place that was selling pork, and someone had written on the bottom of it, "License to kill." It's not funny, but it's funny. The third level of my own evolution came about, as has already been discussed, what we do to the planet through factory farming, the gas emissions, and what we do to the soil, what we do to the water. So the three levels of my own evolution, one was a spiritual awakening in which I could see that the earth was sacred, and I always separate earth from world. They're not synonymous. The earth, Mother Earth is alive, 3/4 water, mountain ranges, sacred soil. It's a living being that's evolving. A friend of mine that many of you may know, Malidoma Some, who from the Dagara tribe in West Africa, was going through his adult initiation as an elder, and he had to wear the dirt of his particular region for a period of time without bathing, and after a particular period of time he could hear the sacred sounds of the birds and the animals in Mother Earth. He could understand their language, and Mother Earth spoke to him and said that she was alive and that she was evolving, that she was unfolding and going to a higher frequency, and that humanity had to move to this higher frequency or there would be anxiousness, anxiety, fear, doubt, worry, death, and destruction. So the earth is alive. The world is something else. The world is a configuration of thoughts, beliefs, opinions, points of view that form a world view, so two people can be standing on the same spot on the planet but be in different worlds. So there's a world of greed, fear, doubt, worry, a world in which individuals have not evolved past the animalistic aspect of their being, a world in which might makes right, a world in which profit is more important than people, there is that world. And then there is the world that God sees. In the beginning, God. In the beginning was the Word was with God. That Word is a vibrational frequency of infinite potential divine vibrational ideas that seek to emerge when the condition is right. And so as we, as spiritual beings, endogenous beings, in other words, we create our own environment, become the right condition, then that world that God sees gets to emerge, that world of love and peace and harmony and generosity and forgiveness. We're vibrational beings. And so the condition is amplified when we place in our body the frequency and the vibration that's most conducive for the emergence of that world. It is not animal byproducts. It's vegetables, it's fruit, it's water. And so it becomes a part of our spiritual practice. As Rabbi said, it's not easy, one step at a time. There are countries now that have meat-free days. And they're able to measure the amount of good that's done when a person just stops eating meat for just one day a week. And then maybe 2 days, and maybe 3 days. Or maybe instead of having meat 3 times a day, you have it once. Who would want to eat meat, carcass and cadaver 3 times a day? Oh my God. And so, all that's been said, I stand in vibrational frequency with. Mother Earth is sacred. Scientists are now telling us that the vibration of the planet is raising. Shamans are telling us that it's alive. There's a world that we can begin to see spiritually. We want to lift our vibration by our thought, our word, our conversation, and our action. Everybody begin to allow the emergence of a kind and just, compassionate world that works for the highest and best within us all. It can start with your fork.